So we're back, and I've gone ahead and tightened all of the tuning pegs and the output jack, and we're going to make some adjustments to the truss rod next. And because we're tightening the truss rod in this case, what we're going to do is release the tension of the strings on the neck, and then we're going to make some small adjustments about a quarter of a turn at a time. We're going to come back and measure the relief, and then we'll see what the damage is, you know? Okay, so we have our 3/16 Allen key. We're going to put it in here. Remember, this Truss Rod fits right in. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. In this case, we're going to go to the right because we're actually looking to get out relief from the neck. We want to reduce the amount of relief. If you wanted to increase the amount of relief, then we would ease up on the truss rod. We want to tighten the truss rod in this case. So what we do is we turn it a drop, loose. You know, we loosen it a drop just to make sure that everything is working smoothly, and it does appear to be working pretty well here. And we're going to go about a quarter turn. Now, we might have to like loosen up a little bit of the strings just to get it, even more so to get it to turn a little further. And then going to take out our Allen key, give it a minute, and we're going to retune. Just grab a pick. Then once we tune up, we could check the relief, and we do the process, you know, again and again until everything pretty much So let me sit down while I'm doing this. It's a bit easier. I could do it with the guitar laying down either, but I like seeing it this way. You see how that's dropped in tuning already. Like 2 full steps almost on some of the strings. But that's okay, because the neck right now is adjusting itself to the relief that we just set in. So some people like this to, you know, let it sit and wait. See, that's not a tune at all. But you know, for all intents and purposes, like we're close enough where we could start to measure the relief. Right after we tune, we're gonna take our capo. There's something stuck in my throat, sorry about that. I'm gonna check at about the 8th fret. And it looks like we're about at 20, so we're gonna have to go a little tighter on the truss rod even. And of course, you know, it is true that it does take some time to set after you make the adjustments on the truss rod, but it doesn't take that long where you have to wait until the next day or anything like that. A couple minutes and it'll all be good. And so you're gonna try to put it in this way to have a little more wiggle room here to deal. Another quarter turn or so. That should bring us down to where we want. We may even have to loosen the truss rod. So this is like a constant, as you can see. You're gonna tune and detune your Strat so many times when you're setting it up. And you could use a better tuner. I already know this thing's not that staying in tune that great, so I didn't see a reason to plug one in. That's an entire step down already. This thing just doesn't want to stay in tune. Doesn't even want to stay in tune long enough for us to measure the relief that we got in the neck. Yes, it's very annoying. And you can see that that's already that's almost down to being D. So let's measure again. Right over here. And we're gonna check at the 8th fret. And this time it looks like we're just about there. We might have put on a bit too much tightening of the truss rod. Doesn't appear to be the case. It looks like we're spot on at like 10. What you could do is use a feeler gauge also, or you could use a business card. I'll show you what that would be like. Something that's roughly the thickness of a business card. One of these from a pack of drinks. And you would just do the same thing. We have the 1st fret capo, so you would press down by the last fret. And you would go to the 8th fret and just make sure that this could slip underneath without really touching the string. And so we could like loosen this truss rod a little bit, and then we'd get about those. We have about 10, but we might be on 9 or 8 also, so we're gonna back off this truss rod just a drop. That's all, maybe like a 1/16 of a turn. And if we're gonna measure again now, using this, we'll see that it fits in there better without erupting the string. And you could check both sides if you want, the bass and the treble. And so it looks like we're right about where we want to be in terms of the action on the neck. And so the guitar is not staying in tune, so we still need to make our adjustments to the bridge. We have a nice gap here, and we've measured that already. We've done everything we need to do with that, so we know that that's good. So the next step is going to be the string height. And the way we do the string height is with one of these little Allen keys. It fits in perfectly. I use a ball end one. You could use any one that you want. Just be careful not to strip any of the screws. And we're going to see what our action is now. And once we measure our action now, we'll know how far we need to come down. And if we use Fender's specifications, and you know, they're recommended like setup criteria, then we should be in good shape. And we should have about 4/64s on all of the strings. We're gonna measure right now. So we have the capo on at the 1st fret. We're gonna jump it back down here to the 17th fret. And we're gonna measure, and we still have, you know, there's on that E string we have a lot. We have about 6. And the rest are around 4.5, 5. So we've done a significant amount of work to bring down that action already, and we're going to continue to do that right now by doing this. So we want to bring the strings lower, so we're going to tighten these. And we're going to loosen up a little bit here. And now we can measure again and see where we've got to. Now we're about at 5, and so we're going to go down a little bit more to try to get it down to 4. Maybe just like a 1/4 to a 1/2 a turn, and I want to make sure my saddle is level on both sides. So right now we're right where we want to be, and we're going to repeat that on all the strings. So now we'll move to the A string, and we'll measure at the 17th fret. That one's pretty good. I might want to drop it just a tad, maybe in a 1/16 of a turn is what I'm doing on the A string. And that looks like it was too much, so we bring it back up. And due to the, you know, you want to compensate for the radius of the fretboard. So the way that we're doing this really helps us with that, because by measuring each string, it's already built in. You know, the radius is going to be already in there. Right, so we're still a little low here. We're going to need to come up a bit more. We're going to turn to the right. right above 4. So you want to remember measure from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, not the top of the string. 4. We're going to bring this down a drop. So you want to make sure that like both sides are level. Because before we intonate, we need to make sure. So that's good. And we're just going to keep moving. Down drop. And we already know that we have a lot of room to adjust from the down from the bridge over here, because these saddles are all the way up, and that's helpful in some ways because we know we have a lot of room to work with on the bridge. The last thing we'd want is, you know, for the saddles to be all the way down and the action to still be horrifically high. That would be a nightmare. This one's real high. That's ridiculously high. So I'm gonna keep turning and bringing it down until we get to 4/64. Just a tad more to the right. And that's it's not rocket science, you know. You're just following recommended measurements. Okay, so our action is where we want it to be when we measure. We're going to tune back up, and the next thing that we're going to have to do is set the intonation on this thing. But already we can see from the changes we made that this is holding tune much better now. And so the next step is going to be the intonation, which if you're having tuning problems, the intonation is many times the culprit. But if you're having tuning problems, it's difficult to get the intonation on point. So we're going to play the string open, and then we're going to play it at the 12th fret and see if we have the same thing. So you see that this low E is spot on. If I'm going to, right now, tune, we're on 12th. That's without anything, and that was just for me when I put those saddles back in, eyeballing the way that I feel it should be. And so that's good. So we're going to play A now and see what goes on A. And that too, a tad bit flat, but good enough for our purposes right now. We can make more precise measurements later on. That D is also pretty much So it's a little bit sharp, just a little bit. And what we're gonna do is adjust the saddle for that D, just a tad. Tune back up and see how close we got. Perfect. So we move on to our G. Our G is in tune. Our G is perfectly in tune at the 12th fret as well. Our B. Perfectly in tune. And our high E, which is more likely to be the culprit than anything else. So that's a little bit flat. Just a tad. Make that adjustment. Play that string again. So now our action is set really nice at the 12th fret without the capo. We're looking at 5/64s on the bass side and just a tad hair over 4 on the treble side. So for all intensive purposes, our action has gotten down a lot lower. It's a lot more comfortable to play. The tuning stability is better at this point. Let's check on the tuning again. And that's still in tune pretty much. So the work that we've done on this guitar wasn't in waste. It's now set up properly. I could even, bring the action a little bit lower because there's no real buzzing on this guitar. Which is what I may want to do right now, actually. And now we'll need to set the intonation again once we lower the action again. So, but we have right now about 5/64s with the capo off. And so we'll measure again at the 17th fret. We have 4. And at the 12th fret with the capo on, we have about 4 everywhere too. So what we could do is lower the treble side and bring that down to about 3.5 and see how that's working for us. This guitar's not making any buzzing noises, which is good, real good. Which tells me a lot about the fretwork, and the fretwork should be good for all intensive purposes. And I think that's true because it's never really been played. So here we have 4, here we have 4, here we have 4. We're gonna start with the D string. And we're gonna just drop, we're gonna tighten this. I'm not trying to get this exact. This isn't science over here. We're just trying to get it more comfortable. Yeah, so we're definitely gonna lower this one a bit more. And so now I'm just making sure that my saddles are level. And we're just gonna eyeball it. I'm not gonna take any measurements or put a level on it or anything crazy like that. So that's where I want it to be. That's still a bit high, A string. Bring it down just a tad. But the good part about this, and you know, having to set that intonation all up over again, there is a bright side to it. And the bright side is that we're gonna get this guitar to play really, really nicely as soon as we're done. And we're almost done here. We're just about done. Just about done. That seems better. Tune this bitch up. And if we're lucky, the changes we made won't put that much damage to the intonation that we had. D open, D at the 12th fret, G open, G at the 12th fret, that's a bit flat, just a tiny drop flat. And so you just adjust. That's all there really is to it. It's not that hard to set intonation. It's just a lot of these things just take time, and that's, you know, you have to put a lot of love into these guitars to get them to play at their best. Just like if you want a car to drive at its best, you're gonna need to put the work into the car. If you want your house to look its best, you gotta put the work into your house. So that's just about perfect, but that G is always a little bit of a pain in the butt. See, we make just like really small adjustments at each time. We don't I'll tell you what we're gonna do. And sometimes you want to play around with it just to get it right, because you'll be a little bit off, but now we're perfect. And we're gonna move on to the B string. That's perfect. We're still in tune at the E, the A, D, G, B, E. tune, and we're gonna just, you know, play it a little bit. And there we go. Still in tune, wouldn't you know it? I should have stretched these strings out when I put them on. That would have helped a little bit with the tuning, but and that's it, folks. It's all good. It's still in tune. So the adjustments we've made have put this thing, given a new life to this guitar. If you would have bought this guitar for your kid, or you would have bought this guitar from anybody else, for someone that doesn't know how to make those adjustments, they would have had a horrible time with this guitar. It would have been a horrible experience. And now with the capo off, if we measure at the 12th fret, we have 5 64s on the low E side, and we're just a tad under 4 on the treble side, which that's great action, you know. That's, I mean, we're doing a lot. I don't think this camera's gonna pick it up, but we're doing a lot better than we were doing before. And you know, the action is nice, it's smooth. It's as good as it's gonna get on a Mexican Strat at this point. Yes, I'm going to need to make more adjustments to it once the neck gets in. And you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea now to just double check that relief now that we made a bunch of adjustments after setting the truss rod. And the 8th fret, you know, we're still a tad above 10 thousandths. Which is good. It's good. And so for the final touch, we're gonna go back to the Mother's Instant Detailer, and every time that your guitar gets dirty or gets a lot of fingerprints on it, there's an easy way to fix it. And an easy way to keep your guitar clean and polished and in nice condition all the time. And it's by using, you know, good quality automotive products. And some people will say, I should never use, you know, a car wax on your guitar. Well, I have news for you. Guitars are painted with car paint. So the paint on the guitar is gonna hold up just as well. If it works on a car finish, it'll work on a guitar finish. It's really that simple. A quick wipe down now with the dry side. And I just want you to see real quick how shiny this thing got and how beautiful of a guitar it is now that we've cleaned it up and we've done what we can to make it play like a good guitar. And really quickly in the back of the neck. And you know, personally, sometimes I buy the cleaning products for the guitar based on the smell. Not everybody does that, but I can't smell something disgusting. It's really horrid for me, and I don't want to deal with it. So, do what I can to make sure the guitar smells good. And we could see the fretboard is nice and conditioned. It looks in good condition. It's not saturated or flowing with oil, but it's not dried out. You don't see the little cracks in it that you see. They were filled mostly by what we did yesterday. And so this is the Strat. You could see it's really, really shiny. One thing we didn't do here is I didn't polish the frets or do anything like that. And it doesn't seem like I really need to. So I'm not gonna do that on this guitar. Yeah, the frets, you know, they're not the cleanest. You could take something like this, Simichrome, a little dab of it, and you could tape up your fretboard, and you could bring those frets to a super high shine, like nothing you've ever seen before. That Simichrome is something else, but I don't really care at this point, you know? What we care about is how the guitar, just look at the reflection in there. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful guitar? It really is, but it didn't look beautiful when we got it. Now though, it's highly reflective, it's highly shined, and we didn't do much work. We didn't take, you know, buffing wheels to it or anything. We did all this by hand and with a few basic tools that anybody should really have in their garage, aside from the string action gauge, which is, as you see, is very helpful in setting your guitar up. So I'm gonna let the guitar now sit, and you know, it's completely playable now. I might need to adjust the saddle height a little bit more, or the intonation a little bit more, once the neck, you know, gets into the position it's comfortable in. Remember that we made the adjustment and then set the guitar up right away, and the setup could need to change based on what happens with that neck. It is almost a 10-year-old neck, so there's no telling, but it's fair, I think, to say that it won't deviate too much away from what it's set up in now. We just, to make it perfect, we just might want to keep that there. Very nice. And so there you have it. That's a complete setup pretty much on, you know, Craigslist special Fender made in Mexico Stratocaster for 250 bucks. You know, the guitar is worth a lot more than that. Definitely plays and feels like it's worth a lot more than that. And so I could easily flip this thing now that it's in, you know, mint condition. The previous owner wasn't able to say that because she didn't know how to keep it in mint condition. But anyone that looks at it now can tell it's probably never been played. And it could definitely pass as a guitar that has never been played. If you put the plastic back on the pick guard here and you gave this to someone and told them it's some new old stock, they would believe you. And these deals are everywhere, and you can make money off them, and you can really learn how to, you know, deal with your Stratocaster. So that's all she wrote, folks. And subscribe to my channel. I plan to make more videos like this whenever I'm setting up any of these guitars, and hopefully soon one will come here that needs some nice fretwork, so we could go over my strategies and technique for fretwork. But I'm glad we got to take this thing apart, and in the last couple of hours of these videos we got to really take something from being shit to being awesome. And so keep an eye out on my channel. I'll plug this thing in and make a video for it, hopefully on another time when it's not so late and the kitties and the neighbors aren't all sound asleep.